Welcome, welcome, welcome to the very first episode of Sense&Rants. Yes, I am Mutarayo Adeola. On this podcast, we make sense of life, or yes, simply rant about it. On today's episode, we are discussing taking up space in a gendered and colored world. I'll be joined by three amazing, black, beautiful, dope-ass women that I get to call friends. Today, I have Bunmi, Chioma, and Dee. A brief bio about them before we meet them. Bunmi Adekunle's personal philosophy is that as individuals and families struggle to make ends meet, they should have one less thing to worry about. With this in mind, she runs a food shelf in Minneapolis. Bunmi is passionate about reducing the impact of poverty, and in her words, sometimes it's about getting a leg up. Bunmi is an HR leader at Cargill, and a major in the United States Army Reserves. She's a diehard Star Trek fan. She enjoys reading novels and books about leadership development and biographies. Bunmi is married to Neyi, and they have two beautiful children, Anu and Ayo. Chioma Agu is both a nerd and a creative at art. She's a technical product manager by day at Adobe and an actor, planner, traveler, dreamer around the clock. Using a combination of these skills, she launched her travel design business, Cube Travel Designs. You guys should please check it out to help others plan their trips and create personalized itineraries. She's an avid reader and amateur writer, and in her free time, you may spot her running around town in training for her next race. Yes, she's a marathon runner. She's also a Stanford graduate, one of my best friends, and she's my bragging rights to Ivy League schools. And our third guest today is no other than the beautiful Dee Olateru. She's a senior manager at Big Four professional services firm, where she spent over a decade serving a wide variety of multinational financial services with clients with a focus on banking and capital market organizations. Dee is passionate about closing the achievement gap and creating opportunities for others through education. She's a member of the board of directors of College Possible, a non-profit organization aimed at accomplishing just that. She serves as a mentor for female African entrepreneurs through AWEC. Dee also currently serves as a co-chair for the Diversity and Inclusion Network at her firm. In June 2020, yes, during the pandemic, Dee founded The Rich Immigrant, an online platform and community established to empower first and second generation immigrants to attain financial independence, lead full lives, and live authentically in the new countries they now call home, while also contributing to their home countries. She enjoys reading, traveling, travel blogging, eating way too much rice, and having conversations with friends. Ladies, welcome to Sense&Rants. I am glad to have you. Dee, say hi.
Hello.
I have Chioma.
Hi.
And then I have Bunmi.
Hi.
So thank you, ladies, for coming to talk with us. And I'm so glad you're here. So we're jumping right into today's topic, and it's titled Taking Up Space in a Gendered and Colored World. So ladies, what has been your experience taking up space? What does that mean to you? What is that like in your different fields? Please talk to us. Let's get started. Who wants to go first? Bunmi, since you're here.
So I'm there just trying to break down the topic, taking up space in a gendered world. I'm thinking that it's been interesting, I think. I think for me, it's knowing who you are and what you want to do. And I think that kind of pushes you through whatever obstacles that's been created. I don't know, what do you ladies think?
No, I think I agree with what you're saying, because when I think about taking up space, it's really about showing up as my full self and owning all the parts of my story, all the parts of my identity, even the parts that maybe I might have been uncomfortable with, but kind of just owning all of that and being like, well, I'm here, this is my full self, and kind of the rest of you have to deal. So that's what I think about. I think I agree with what you're saying.
Andy?
Yeah, and maybe if I'll just add to that, I think of taking up space as simply existing. I think that it's recognizing that I have a right to exist, to be here, to show up, to have an opinion, to pursue the things that I want to pursue in my life, to speak without apology, right? Whether it's taking up space physically in a meeting or physically when I travel, or taking up space at a doctor's appointment and speak up for my body and how I feel, or taking up space to have the courage to ask for what I want when I'm on a date, So I think it's just having the courage to show up and to exist fully without playing small.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. I really like that. I like having the courage to show up. That is so true.
Yeah. So you're simply saying, at least what I'm hearing is being unapologetic about who you are and what you have to offer.
Yeah, but also just knowing what you have. Because I think that makes a difference. If you're not sure, if you don't know what you have, it's kind of hard to just show up, or then it makes you a little bit more timid. So I think you have to know who you are and what you possess.
Okay. And I think in addition to knowing what you possess, is about knowing that that's also enough, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think that especially as Black women, from time to time, like there is this sense of kind of playing small, where even though we know what we have to offer, we still have that I don't know, it's kind of that thing where it's like a duck above water and you think they're gliding, but there's imposter syndrome. There's the fact that we all look like we're struggling underwater, and it's not still kind of having this feeling of like, is it enough? Like, is this what they're looking for? So it's just like being like, this is what I have and that's enough. Like, I'm qualified enough to be here.
Yeah.
That's enough.
Yeah, so true.
Okay, I'm loving this
true.
already.
Yeah,
you guys are dropping gems. I think my next question here is, where's that defining moment for you when you realized you were the other, and what did that feel like? It doesn't have to be just work, maybe just like the first time, high school, college, the first time you got on a flight to international country, just any experience you can remember.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, it is totally true. I think for me,
I would say for me, I came to United States to go to college, right? After living and being raised in Nigeria. So for me, my first realization of being an other was my coming to America story, where I came from Lagos and I came to Minnesota, and I was like, what? That was the first, like, wow, okay, there aren't many of us, and I'm really one of the minority here. So that was my first other moment. And I think I think you kind of build resilience, or you kind of build a tough skin. You expect it, after you've been here for a while. And then when I started traveling after grad school, I didn't expect to be an other. Yet here I was. I had all this dream of, trying to see the world, but I didn't really realize that the world desperately needed to see people like me as well. So
true.
For me, I was in Greece and Turkey by myself backpacking. My parents were like, "Where's this one going? Who else there?" So it was a shock to me again that people were asking to take pictures with me and all that stuff, and I was
Celebrity.
like, what is this now? I just want to backpack like everybody else. And then after that traveling, I think coming back to corporate America and working for a large global firm, there I wasn't surprised, but still, I was one of a few, and 10 years down the line, still one of a few.
Yeah,
totally. I think I completely relate to your story.
Yeah.
And like, if I had to define my moment, it kind of aligns exactly what you said. Like, I also didn't feel other until moving to the US, except for me, I ended up moving actually to like a majorly Black community, and I went back to high school, which is the whole story. But then, like, even though a lot of people around me were Black, like there was definitely a huge othering. Like, I was one with the accent, the clothes that didn't fit in, just came in the middle of the school year. It was just a strange experience all around, and that was difficult. That was really rough. And then I thought, okay, well, I'm going off to college and it will be different because, college is like everybody from everywhere. And yes, I ended up going to HBCU.
Repping hard.
But even though, yes, it was an HBCU and there were, again, a lot of people like me and from everywhere, the core of the community was still people like Black people who grew up in America, which was not an experience I could really relate to. So there's definitely was kind of an othering in that experience, where just a lot of things that everybody had these commonalities on. I didn't get that. And same with you, Dee, like with traveling as well. Like, that's also an experience I can completely relate to. Even in places where I didn't expect to be the other, like during my travels, and that was like a shock and very surprising. But yeah, I think I just relate very much to like everything that you said.
Yeah, I think my story definitely aligns with both. Just also coming from Nigeria, and in similar to Dee's case, coming to Minnesota, and And I think my moment was when I realized that I had to keep teaching people how to pronounce my name. I think that always got to me because I'm always like, should I just let them get away with it? Or should I correct it? Like, is it okay or not? So I think that was the defining moment for me. And then I was younger when I came, but I was also, so I left Nigeria when I graduated high school, but not the typical age that you would graduate high school in the US. So I always felt like I was out of place in anywhere. I went to college right away, and I would never be able to get into anything. Like, oh, you're not 18 yet, you can do this. So I think I was always reminded that I was an other. So then even, graduating college and going to just starting working, joining the military. I think now they just butcher your name and you're reminded every time, like, you're different, you're another, and I think every time continuously, you're always reminded you're another. But I think at this time, I've actually started to own the fact that I'm an other and I'm cool with it. Like, I'm never going to blend in. It is just what it is. You mess up my name, I will be the one to correct you. We're not going to go back and forth on this. But I think right now I feel like it's cool to be another. I don't blend in. So that's great.
So being an other is the new cool now?
It is cool.
Okay.
I think it is.
I mean, I think that there's certain levels of otherness that are cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there is a point that I'm actually glad that you brought up, which was kind of the otherness around being young and feeling young, because again, that's something that I relate to as well. Like, I finished from high school at 15 or secondary school, I should say. And so in all the circles where I found myself, I was super young. When I went to grad school, I was really young, and I felt like I once even had an interviewer ask me, like, oh, if you only worked for a year, how did you get into this like prestigious school type question? And I was shook. Like, I was in shock. Like, that really messed. I was kind of like, well, are you trying to say like I don't deserve to be here? Like, I already kind of felt like I didn't deserve to be here, and then to hear that in an interview setting, like, my self-esteem kind of like the rest of the interview was a blur, right? And even like finally getting to work and on my team, like, I'm probably the youngest person on my team by at least like 7 years to the next person to me. And it's kind of taken a while to be like, okay, like, to find my voice in that situation, to say, okay, well, what I have to say is valuable, even though all of you probably have a lot more experience than I do, and you probably know stuff more than I do, but I'm bringing a fresh perspective and a different perspective, and it's valuable too. So I think there's definitely an otherness to that I'm so glad that you mentioned.
Yeah, and I think it's just about owning it, right? The other topic we talked about the fact that knowing what you're worth and knowing you're enough. So, the fact that we're other is just what it is, and we just have to definitely own it and be able to show up when we need to.
That is, oh my God, I feel like I'm learning so much from all three of you together. Like, I'm getting schooled right now, but I'm loving it. So you guys all mentioned, things that have to do with work. How did you find your voice? What helped you find your voice, if that's even a good question to ask? Like, did you read? Did you find a good mentor that looks like you within those organizations? What was that thing that helped you grow into yourself, into your role, into accepting your otherness?
So for me, the main thing was finding an area of that. I shouldn't say finding. As I worked, I developed an area of expertise, right? Where naturally, so then every time there's a question on that area or anything else, like, everybody on my team comes to me on that. And I think that kind of confidence, like, okay, wow, like, I know this stuff more than anybody else. Where even the people who kind of built it have like forgotten how it works, like, and I'm the expert. Like, that's so valuable. Or just even looking at, I remember there was a time at work where we had kind of this categorization of like these different projects that we do. And I was like, wait, I actually do a lot. Like, I do all of these things, and that's really valuable. Like, and so I started to be like, okay, well, look at all that I actually do. Because for a while I discounted the work I was doing, thinking it wasn't as valuable. But when I saw it actually written down, I was like, oh wow, okay, wait, I do a lot. I think so. It was like those two things of being like, these are the things that I do that is valuable for the rest of the team, and this is the area of expertise that everybody else comes to me on, were kind of the things that helped me to kind of finally find my voice and be like, okay, like, I know what I'm doing here and I'm valuable here.
Wow, that's amazing. Dee?
Yeah, so for me, I think, finding my voice and myself, I think it's a continuous process. I think I've come a long way, but I think I'm still becoming, in a sense, right? So, to Chioma's point, I think expertise in an area definitely helps. Once you hone your craft and you can speak to certain things, nobody can take that away from you. But I personally continue to find myself, to find my voice, right? And to strengthen my voice, doing a couple of things. I think I continue to be grounded in my faith, right? That's an important thing to me and an important source of like my identity. So that's important to me. But I think beyond that, I also have my tribe and the voices that I trust that remind me of who I am in moments where I doubt myself or doubt my abilities or doubt whether I belong in a space. So I think, looking out for the voices that you trust. Not every voice is a voice that you should trust. So having that tribe and those people, I think that comes in handy for me. I think I'm reminded, through, my career, I look back at my track record and say, you've done the damn thing globally, and so I can be like, I've worked for a global firm on 4 continents in the world. I've done excellent work. So yes, look back and say, okay, if I have done those things, even though, because sometimes I think how much of a voice I have changes on where I am, right? And so if I'm in a new space or in a different space, the voice that I have that I've honed, sometimes it becomes smaller. So I want to be honest about that, right? Yeah. And so I think that, if I'm thrust into a new space, I rely less on history, especially if it's a new area where I don't have expertise, but I rely on, my history hasn't brought me here, but every experience has positioned me for where I sit today. And also, my tribe, my community, my mentors. And yes, it helps to have, mentors that look like me, but in my field, there are not many mentors that look like me. So I've also had many white men put me in position, right? But I do have Black women, African women that I go to just be like, I need a little bit of ginger today. What are you going to tell me? And so it's a combination of that. But social media is also great, honestly. People that I look to that I may never meet, but I read their stories and I look at their words and sometimes it just spurs me on. And yes, as of yesterday, Kamala Harris is the vice president-elect, a daughter of immigrants. And so can we acknowledge that this is also a source of motivation for us immigrants, right? So those are, I don't know if that answers your question, but I go to a couple of different sources to continue to find my voice.
And that's a great answer, actually. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think you raised an important point that where we find sometimes we have our voice, and then sometimes if we're in a new space, it's hard to get that voice. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time. And I think I'm reminded of for almost 10 years, I was out of the corporate area and I was running a nonprofit and I was just kind of trying to do my thing and run that nonprofit. But then after a while, I got tired of that. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back to work. I'm going to go back to the corporate area. And I found myself in an area where I had to start learning. And I found that it was very difficult to find my voice. And that was not the norm for me. So I'm there trying to make sure that I totally understand everything that's going on and, again, develop the expertise in this area, but then also be able to show up the way I want to show up. And I think that took a while for me. So definitely when you find yourself in a new space, you have to figure out what to hold on to. My faith is definitely one. One thing that helped me was getting a mentor. There was a Black woman. She was in a senior level position, and I could just reach out to her and say, is it okay? Can you mentor me through this process? And she was willing, and I was definitely grateful that she was willing to do that. But I think that helped me understand the new space I was and get back my voice. So sometimes it takes a little bit while, and sometimes in a different area. I'm in the military, and in that area I do well. I'm able to flourish. I don't struggle with my voice or anything. But in a different area, I find that is it the same person? Is it what's going on here? But I think time helps. Definitely your faith and even just the people you surround yourself with, I think makes a big difference.
That's actually something that I find very interesting. I feel like as Black women and possibly as immigrants, right, there are different parts of ourselves that show up in different places. I meet some people that, they're Sarah here, they're Sarah there, and then they're just Sarah everywhere. And then you see people like me, I'm Ayo here, I'm Rayo there, I'm Motsarayo here. And I feel like, the different parts of me that show up, I feel like it's fractures and just like different parts of me. And then when I'm in my house, everything comes together like, oh, this is Motsarayo. But where I go to at times, I show up differently. Do you guys agree, or is that a thing for some of you or not?
No, I think it's definitely a thing, which I think is just kind of been spoken. It's been addressed, right, by everybody else, which it's just that sometimes, we just show up in different spaces in different different place because we are different people, depending on again who we're around and all of these things. Like different people bring out different parts of us, different circumstances bring out different parts of us. Like we are probably more confident and stronger in our voices in certain settings, and then there's some settings where we're maybe more timid. And it doesn't mean that we won't get to a place of having a stronger voice. It probably is just kind of in process, or we'll eventually get there, or so it's so I get that. I completely understand what you're saying, and I agree. I find that too.
Okay, that's good to know that it's not just me.
I think one thing that I've been able to think about continuously is, how do I want to show up in this place? So even before I get somewhere or I work or something, I just ask myself, how do I want to show up? How do I want people to not necessarily perceive me, because people have their own opinion, but what is okay to me? And at the end of the day, will I be fine with what I show? How did I show up at the meeting? Would I be okay with that? And I think just consciously thinking about that has helped me just kind of to monitor those things, when I want to step back and remember, no, my intention is to lean in. So then I catch myself like, no, this is not what you want to do. So again, not even worrying about what people are thinking, but just more like, what do I want for myself and what is important to me?
Yeah, and I agree with the point that you just made there, because I think, yes, me with my friends versus me at work, different. But at the end of the day, I want the essence of who I am to be the same wherever I show up. So yes, I'm gonna be drop all the formalities with my friends and all of that, and I can say things that I wouldn't say at work. But at core of it, if somebody describes who is Dee, either at work or at a nonprofit I work with, or with my travels, at the core of it, I want them to describe me as the same person. I want my values to show up the same regardless of where I sit or what room I find myself in. And so those are some things I ask myself to be like, and I think I've been asking myself a lot of that more in 2020 since George Floyd in America, especially at work. Yeah. Is that okay? I've never talked about things like race at work until it's just a part of my life that I just block. We don't go there, and I've just asked myself, is this how I want to continue to show up?
It goes back to what we said in the beginning, right? Which is about showing up as your full self anywhere you find yourself. Like, I think to your point, like when the whole NSAS thing was kind of like blowing up, and on the day that it all finally came to a head, there was just, as a person, as a Nigerian person, I could not deal anymore. And even though nobody else in my team, at least, I shouldn't say my organization, like cared. Again, not like they should. It probably didn't affect them, so they weren't even aware, right? But it affected me, and I was like, you know what, you guys, I'm done for today. I cannot. This is where I am, and like I cannot deal anymore. Like, this is me showing up as my full self. Like, we're gonna talk about it. And like I had a moment of just like talking about it, whether or not you relate to it or you understand it. I actually don't care. Like, you're gonna get it. Like, okay. This is so you're like, yeah, actually I think 2020 has actually been one of those years of me just kind of showing up as my entire self as a Black Nigerian woman, like in all the ways.
Wow, thank you so much, ladies, for your time. One last question before I let you go. Yes, I'm letting you go. What are some tips that you can share with us, listeners, just on how you've built your confidence to get here, to this place where you're whole and strong and beautiful and flourishing? Please share with the rest of us.
Okay, I don't have the tips yet, as other people I think, but I just want to say though that like this is a process. I think when you said the word whole, like I was like, oh wait, what?
To me, you three are the definition of like, boss, living your best lives, like actually doing the damn thing that needs to be done. So please, I'm just like, yeah. But on a serious note though, that's how I see you guys. So yeah.
No, I appreciate that, but I think again, it goes, since we are being honest and very open. It's kind of like say that's like it might look that way, and I speak for myself. That's not that I'm reading with self-doubt a lot of the time. So it's not like I have this like confidence or wholeness all the time that I'm carrying around. It's really not. So I'm just putting that out there just as it. So to anyone who might be listening, like it's not like if I feel this way, then there is something. Like, no. You can have this feelings or whatever, and still like everyone that you look up to, honestly, probably they still have their doubts sometimes too about themselves. So that's okay if you have all of those, but that still doesn't mean that you still can show up and be a loud and a strong voice. So that's just kind of the point that I'm making.
Okay. I agree. It's definitely a process. But I really like what Chioma said in the beginning is knowing that you're enough. Knowing that you're enough. I think that makes a difference even as you try to figure things out yourself. Knowing that it's enough. Yes, I might aspire to be more, but right here where I am is still enough for me to start. So I think just always knowing that and figuring out exactly what you want. Sometimes I think we're not even sure what we want and we're just going here and there. But I think if I know what I want and I'm willing to work hard towards that, I think it makes it a little bit easier because I'm determined and I'm like, you know what? This is what I want for myself, and I'm going to try to work harder for it. If it's, getting, reading more about this or seeking a mentor in that area or whatever else I need to do. If it's something that I figured out by myself and just kind of knowing that this is what I want to do, I think that helps. But I really love what you said. What you say is like knowing you're enough. I think that has definitely resonated with me.
Well, Chioma, there you go.
And maybe if I'll just chime in for the last bit here. I think for me, I said it right. The first thing is becoming. I've not arrived. I don't know if I'll ever arrive, right? But I think it's at least making a conscious choice to realize that you've got to be intentional about taking up space. So I think if you're looking, first of all, have you taken up space in the past? If you already have and there's nothing to do, keep showing up as you. But if you realize that you haven't, think about the spaces where you have not taken up space and maybe ask yourself, why haven't you done that?
Right.
Is it because you don't think you belong in that room? Is it because you don't think you have the skills? So I think stepping back and maybe just being intentional and making a choice to show up and then defining what showing up means to you in different spaces, different situations. And then say, okay, when next time in a meeting, I'm going to speak up. When next time in a meeting, I'm going to ask a question or I'm going to say, I'm speaking, right? Or maybe it's that, I'm going to read books and podcasts around this topic because I struggle with it. Or maybe I'm going to look at who I follow on social media and be sure that I follow women or people that I'm inspired by in this space or that sphere or something of the sort. Or maybe I'll tell my friends to remind me of these things, once a month, or I'll check in with someone once a month. So I think it's first just being intentional to say, I'm going to take up space going forward. And when I say that, when I'm doing it at work, this is what it means. And I'll check in with myself to make sure I continue to do that.
Wow.
I love that.
One other tip that I would say is ask for what you want. I mean, be afraid if you're afraid, but ask anyway. The worst is going to be a no. Nobody is going to hold it against you for having asked. Honestly, they will probably not remember. So just ask. It could give you such great outcomes rather than like if you just didn't ask and then you just never know. So really just take the step and ask. Closed mouths don't get fed.
Oh,
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. And something someone told me a long time ago is no is also an answer.
Oh, I think they're frozen.
Are you guys back? Okay. You were frozen. No is also an answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Is that like and like telling somebody, yeah?
What'd you say?
I was saying, like, is that like in context of like you giving somebody an answer of no?
No, it's just like, when you said ask, right? And it is okay if nobody actually, says yes, but just ask anyways. And something we also have to be open to is the idea of like, sometimes your answer is no. And that's okay too.
Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, at least now you know and you can move on to the next thing versus if you just like sat there wondering about it.
Next time, right? If the first answer was no, you know how to change your pitch next time.
Exactly.
Alrighty. Talking about changing your pitch next time, I hope you guys come back again whenever I invite you. Thank you so much for coming on this episode of Sense and Rants. I enjoyed having you guys. I hope you guys had fun. Thank you. I think that ends today's episode of Sense and Rants. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. But you get the gist, right?
Thanks for having us. No, this was great.
Thank you, Auntie. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you, ladies, for joining me on this episode of Sense and Rant. I hope you guys had fun. Special shout out to Eric at Quincy Street Studio for helping me record this session. And to you listeners, to you viewers, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. Until next time, just remember, whatever it is you want to do, whoever it is you want to become, all you have to do is start. I'll see you next time. Bye.